call the small forward over here, and you have the big drink of water, you have the center over here, and you're all running down together. I said, how do you know that you can pass the ball over there without looking? And this one will know that the big drink of water is going to be right by the hoop, so if you give a lob pass, he can just throw it right down the hole in 2 points. And Barnes looked at me and I said, you guys call that being in the zone. You'll hear basketball players say that all the time. I was in the zone today, and they score 50 points. No mind. They've cleared the mechanism. Runners do it. You guys run or softball? Run. You can do that. When you get enough dopamine in your system, you are just on a pathway. I've seen people in long distance runs. You can tell they're almost out of their mind, but there's nothing that stops them from moving forward. They're just in that zone. You can do that at any time. Anytime. You can clear the clutter anytime, but it takes practice. It takes practice. I was talking to one of my colleagues who goes to what they call silent retreats. You're with people and no one says a word. For the whole week, you're just there and no one says a word. You're in real silence. And for the first 3 days, you have a headache and all the chatter going on in your head is your own self. How many of you know you self-talk all the time? And all this chatter goes on and on and on and on. But after about 3 days, it kind of calms down, and pretty soon you can hear you think rather than the chatter. And you begin to focus. Of course, you have to put yourself in a position to experience that. And it's just easier to suffer, to listen to all the chatter. You know how you do that? You're not doing well with someone, you have this argument in your head, how you're going to deal with them. And you go through the argument over and over and over again, and then you run into them, and they don't have the same argument you had. And it's like, well, wait a minute, all my good one-liners, I can't use them. Right? Self-talk, self-chatter, and then you end up being really upset because the conversation did not go the way you wanted it to go. Because your mind had prepped you for the conversation, then it isn't real. So now you're really suffering, or angry, or whatever the manifestation of suffering is. So Buddha says that's life. And we can't avoid that, and we shouldn't try and avoid it, but how we deal with it is meaningful. And it could lead us to what he calls enlightenment. Later on, we'll talk about how that is nirvana, a place of total rest and peace. I honestly know no one who can live like that, but I know people who practice that, and their report's a little different than our report. Any questions for me about the Buddha? So what to remember? Siddhartha Gautama is his name. He was born into wealth. He tried wealth. He didn't find peace and harmony. He chose to go into poverty. The minimalist lifestyle, didn't find that, realized that life's about suffering, but to embrace suffering is a mistake. We have to find a way to let go. How do we let go? The Four Noble Truths. Life is about suffering. This is the avenue of suffering, that fivefold avenue of suffering. We can get out of suffering. And how do we get out of suffering? It's a noble eightfold path. It begins with how we think, how we behave, and how we interact with one another. If you get that down, you have one half of your quiz on Sunday. Any questions? It's just real simple. The notes I put up there are highlighted, the fourfold path, the eightfold noble path. It shouldn't be hard for you at all if you concentrate and get that information. All nuts and bolts right now. Okay, thank you. If you came in late, let me know you